Hey everybody, welcome back to Tri-City Sports Now, and I do have to make an embarrassing correction. Obviously, it is not Phil Fulmer who is being considered for a spot at Alabama. No, it is Butch Jones. My apologies, as Phil Fulmer has, even more than Jeremy Pruitt, obviously become the face of Tennessee football again, that once was so prominent with Butch Jones. And I guess there's a rumor going on, and it should be said it's a rumor going out, that Nick Saban, and I gotta tell you something. Alabama, they hired a couple of coaches the other day. They hired Mike Losky. They promoted him to offensive coordinator, and Tosh Lupoli was promoted to be the defensive coordinator. And let's see here, Losky is replacing Brian Dabble as the Tide's offensive coordinator. Losky he was a head coach, but only 2-26 with the New Mexico Lobos. Let's see, he was the interim coach at Maryland. He went 1-15 there, or 1-5, excuse me. So I'll get the numbers right here. So I don't know. You look at the head coaching record, and I don't know. It isn't all that impressive. I remember Rick Venturi, the longtime coordinator, defensive coordinator. Ever look up his record in terms of wins and losses as the coach of Northwestern and the Indianapolis Colts? I don't know if he won a game in 4 years. And if he did, he won one. So, I don't know. But reports out, the state, let's see here, I've got AL.com saying that Butch Jones is being talked about as an offensive analyst. And frankly, if you've just hired Mike Losky as an offensive coordinator with his record as a head coach, you might want to give him all the help you can. Question is if Butch Jones is, that big of a help or not. I don't know. I thought that Jones, and I know that, he was linked to several jobs. I know when he got fired, there was a writer who really wanted him to come to Kansas, an SB Nation writer. Well, that's because Kansas has been way down, and they were, what? Tennessee got rid of a coach after 2 straight 9-4 seasons? We'll take a bad year for 2 9-4s, such is the case of Kansas football. Of all the top 5 jobs, now this is debatable, but of all the top 5 jobs, Kansas might be the worst of them. And that is debatable. But I mean, I would say that in the SEC, what's the worst job? I'd say Kentucky. I know a lot of people say Vanderbilt. I just think Vanderbilt. I think Kentucky's always going to be a basketball school. I think now with the big money coming into Vandy, that they've never won the SEC East. I mean, they're probably destined to win it once every 50 years or so. But it just seems to me that Vanderbilt has improved over the last, certainly beating Tennessee 4 out of 6 years. And, they won national championship in baseball. Well, hasn't Kentucky won national championship in basketball, Marky? Well, okay, possibly bad analogy. But I just think that the situation, maybe playing in Nashville, is a little bit better at Vanderbilt. I think academics can actually be, those strong academics can be a recruiting advantage and not a handicap. Look at Stanford. Look at really contemporary Northwestern. They won 10 games last year. And so, I put Kentucky beneath Vanderbilt. I might put Ole Miss, with their proclivity on going on probation all the time, beneath even Kentucky. But that's another story for another day. I'll go with Kentucky in the SEC. Big Ten, I'll probably go Indiana because it's another basketball school. You know that you're always going to lose that to the basketball coach at Indiana. Rutgers is there, okay, yeah, but, Rutgers at least is in New Jersey, and there's something to be said for that. A lot of local talent coming in. Indiana, you're only going to get, the scraps of anybody else in the Big Ten, including if there's a great player in Indiana who wants to stay home, he's probably going to go either Notre Dame or Purdue. So, that you've got that. Maybe not. I mean, I guess you could pick off some. Lee Corso won, 8 games there 1 year. He won 8 games there 1 year. 1 year. Okay, so you're always going to be an afterthought at Indiana. I know they've had a couple of 6-6s lately or so. You're always going to be an afterthought there. Worst job in the ACC. A lot of people would have said historically Duke. Cutcliffe's doing some nice things there. I mean, heck, they played for a conference championship, won the division there. Who do you say is the worst there? That's a little bit let me give me a little time to think on that one. Because you've got the 4 North Carolina schools, and pretty much they all think about basketball first. I've always thought Wake Forest, because it's got a small enrollment, Inner City ought to win more. Pitt didn't have any great shakes, but they did go to 9 straight bowls before then. And Pitt used to be a power. Of course, they haven't won 10 games since Dan Marino was the quarterback. But, there's talent in Pennsylvania, if you can scrape some of it from Penn State. There's talent in Virginia, too. I guess that's Virginia Tech in football. It's their state, and Virginia in basketball, obviously. They're number 1 in the country. So you look at that. I would say probably the worst job in the ACC, Boston College, in terms of football. I'd say Boston College. Big market. You always say, can't you get a guy to come to Boston and play? Possibly, but I'd go Boston College. Worst job in a Pac-12. Boy, that's one right there, huh? Let's think about this. I'm hesitant because they've had a little bit of success. I don't think I'd want to go to Utah. A lot of people say Oregon State. Historically, Oregon State's been terrible. They are outspent by Oregon in their own state. Then again, Dennis Erickson went there, won 11-1, beat Notre Dame, a good Notre Dame, in a New Year's Day bowl game. That was maybe 15 years ago or so, I guess, But, Oregon State, it's not as bad as it used to be. One of the things I do think that Oregon State has going for it is, and I just look at the structures and the cultures of football, and I think having a more conservative campus, and of Oregon and Oregon State is the more conservative campus, that's something that, there's something to that. There's a reason I think now that Texas A&M is spending the money and really winning the battles in this decade over Texas, despite the profitability of Texas and all this. One is very conservative, A&M very conservative, Texas, Austin, very liberal. And as we are culturally, aligning sports with politics, I've always thought that, that's going to help the conservative-leaning schools. Maybe Bob Jones should start up a major college football program. But you look what Liberty is trying to do. I mean, if you want to go that route. And having a little bit of success with it. They're going to go FBS. And I can remember when they were the one team in 85 that ETSU didn't lose to. So obviously they're, advancing. And that's a reason why I might hesitate to say that Oregon State is the worst football job in the Pac-12. By that token, you might say, well, what about California? Thing is, California has had Berkeley, the Golden Bears. Cal has had some nice quarterbacks go through there through the years. Aaron Rodgers, historically guys like Joe Kapp, who later coached the football team, and Craig Morton. And I know I'm forgetting somebody else, but, they've had nice quarterbacks at California. Washington State has had nice quarterbacks. Better or worse, his college career was pretty good, Ryan Leaf. But, Tim Rosenbaum, his college career was much better than his pro. Drew Bledsoe was also from Washington State. So they've had good quarterbacks there. What else do we got? That's why I kind of look and I'd say maybe worst job Pac-12. I know Colorado is a real afterthought after the Broncos, but Colorado has had success before on occasion. So's Utah. I mean, look, Alex Smith's from Utah, right? But ultimately, that's the place that Urban Meyer wants to get away from. I don't know. It's tough to fight that Nike money that Oregon has in state. Don't get me wrong. But I guess it's just because I've seen Oregon State play at a high level under Dennis Erickson and a higher level than I saw what Utah played at under Urban Meyer. And that's probably why I would take... Utah's a basketball school, too. I mean, I look at that. Arizona has never won a Pac-12 championship in football. Still, you just sort of think, well, the warm weather, come on, growing the Sun Belt there. I don't think Arizona is that good of a sports area, by the way. Neither now does Sean Miller, huh? But yeah, Utah, I can't really assess Utah, but I might go on a limb. Worst job in the Pac-12, I'd say Utah. So worst job in the ACC, I'd say Boston College. Worst job Big Ten is Indiana. Worst job in the SEC for football, we're talking, is Kentucky. Worst job in the Big 12, all 10 of those teams. Now there's something to ponder. Baylor's got the academics, but yeah, we got into this where I got off onto a tangent, and Butch Jones, because there's a writer from Kansas. I think I would say Kansas is the worst show. I know Kansas, won the Big 8 in, 1968. They were playing for the championship against Missouri in 2007. They had a top 10 team that went back to the Orange Bowl or so that year. Okay, so every 50 years, Kansas does well. And that's about it. Yeah. That's a basketball school. I know Iowa State struggled historically, but they seem to be, now they seem to be doing quite well under Matt Campbell. So I don't think that that's the worst job there. Baylor, I know they had 13 straight losing seasons, probably one of the worst teams in all of FBS last year. But, you still think about the RG3 era, and that was pretty good. I mean, Texas Tech is blah, but blah does not necessarily mean that they're the worst. Kansas State is obviously the football school in Kansas. I would say of all the 10 Big 12 schools, maybe not where you want to go to get your accounting degree, the worst football job, I'd say Kansas. That's the topic there that we got on, the rainy day topic right there. Worst football schools in the Big 5 for everyone. So Kansas, Boston College, Utah. I know that's going out on a limb a little bit right there. Indiana, and finally, Kentucky. Well, I'll tell you what. I got to go between Kansas and Indiana for worst program in the area. I would take Kansas. I mean, fewer people there than Indiana. You got to figure that just one day you'll be able to luck out on getting a real big star at Indiana from Indianapolis or something. A great quarterback, and you have a year or two at Indiana, that sort of thing. I know once every 50 years Kansas makes the Orange Bowl, but even so, I got onto that because, somebody at Kansas actually thought Butch Jones looked good as a football coach. So forgive me, I went off on a tangent right there. And that was probably not the best thing that I could do. But there is some talk about Butch Jones going to Alabama, assisting Mike Locksley. Tennessee fans ought to like that. That'd be a little bit less money that they'd have to pay on the buyout. They still owe Butch $8 million, and whatever Alabama pays him, Tennessee doesn't. So in other words, if they would pay, I don't know, just throw out this figure, $4 million. It's probably a little bit more than what it would be. Over the next few years, then Tennessee would only have to pay Butch Jones $4 million of what they owe him. So just give you that idea. So Jones has visited Tuscaloosa, met with Saban in person, per sources. He'll be motivated because they hired Jeremy Pruitt to be his replacement, although a lot of times that stuff is just, overblown. Saban likes to hire the old head coaches and push them around. That's the thing. Jones kind of was bully coach for a period of time at Tennessee. And how would he deal with and handle that Nick Saban, that cutting you down, that sort of thing right there? It's one of the things I just don't understand, how Nick Saban, where you have to recruit, you have to be the personality in all this. And here's Saban, Bill Belichick light. Heck, he's his former defensive coordinator. I don't get how he's able to recruit so well. Staff around him, hey, Lane Kiffin was a personality, sure. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Marky, you're talking about Alabama. That's one of the great football programs in the country. If you went through what the top programs are, Alabama is the top program in the SEC. Yeah, I would say so now. Yeah, I might have, when Urban Meyer was there, have said Florida because of the athletes that come out of Florida. I'm not so sure that Georgia won't overtake Alabama in the very near future, however, for that. So, yeah, I mean, Alabama is probably going to win, but I can remember a 4-9 at Alabama. I think some people will say, what about these winless? Well, that's forfeited. They had some recruiting problems there at Alabama. That was, that sort of thing. But, yeah, obviously, I mean, you don't have to be the greatest coach in the world to win at Alabama. However, yeah, what Saban is doing, I mean, it's who's better, Nick Saban or Bear Bryant. All right. So we've got that. One of the interesting things, though, I mentioned Georgia. Paul Feinbaum agrees with me. He's talking about South Carolina being the dark horse in the SEC East next year. I believe the Bulldogs have to go to Columbia. They got Jake Bentley and they got Deebo Samuel. That's probably the SEC's best passing combo coming back. Still got to get past Kentucky. How has South Carolina lost 4 straight years to Kentucky? That I don't get. Of course, Kentucky's an improved program, but still, for my money, the worst in the SEC, although Tennessee was for 1 year last year. Anyway, the idea is that Jones would join as an offensive analyst. By the way, that is what Chris Wenke was before he went to Tennessee as the running backs coach. And also Dan Werner left as an analyst to go to South Carolina. Shea Tierney and William Vlachos left to join the Buffalo Bills. That's one thing about the Bills that I never quite got. The Bills, historically, they go a lot to the... when Chan Gailey was the coach there, all of his assistants didn't have a lot of pro background. It was all college. I thought that was one of the reasons why the Bills, didn't make the playoffs until this past year after 1999. But anyway, the rumor mill, Butch Jones could be joining Alabama as an offensive assistant. There you go. He would be helping out Mike Locksley, another former coach, although a losing one, as the offensive coordinator. Josh Lupoy, he is the new defensive coordinator. And he was the team's, Alabama's that is, co-defensive coordinator and outside linebackers coach in 2017, replacing Pruitt, who, of course, went to Tennessee as the head football coach. They move up whenever you're going from coordinator to head coach. Unless, I guess, you were, there's the thing. Randy Sanders will tell you that. But do you think? Another thing to ponder. What are your thoughts on that? Randy Sanders move up by going from OC at Florida State to HC at ETSU? He wanted a head coaching job. He said he would have been more interested in the HC job head coach at ETSU originally, but Phil Fulmer just hired him called him a few days late, just after he'd taken a Florida State offensive coordinator job. Now, there's something to ponder. But, yeah, going from coordinator at one SEC school, even a great one like Alabama, to becoming the head coach at Tennessee, great history, not so good right now. that is pretty much, that's what you're trying to do. And let's face it, winning football teams generally don't change their head coach. So you're probably going to go to a losing team. I'm not telling you anything there you don't know. There was some talk there about the Dallas Cowboys and the fine that Jerry Jones is going to incur, or is he? Is it even a fine? Really, it's not. Plus, Virginia Tech had a big upset. I've got more to talk about on Tri-City Sports Now.
Destination Tire